A billionaire is alive today because my 8-year-old daughter scribbled a warning on the back of her homework and stuck it under a stranger's windshield wiper in the pouring rain. That same little note dragged us out of a moldy one-bedroom apartment and into a life I didn't even dare to dream about. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, I fell in love with the man whose car she saved. Yeah, I know how that sounds. Like some cheesy Netflix script somebody made up in a boardroom. But this is my life, and I want to tell you exactly how it happened, the way it really felt from the inside. My name is Brianna Thompson, and when all this started, I was just a tired single mom. In a neighborhood, people only remember when they need a sad backdrop for a news story. Riverside Heights, cracked sidewalks, sirens at night, kids learning way too early how to duck when they hear a loud bang outside. We lived on the 3rd floor of an old brick building where the hallway always smelled like fried chicken and bleach, and the radiator made more noise than heat in the winter. I worked 2 jobs, days at a grocery store called Morrison's, nights cleaning offices downtown. I was the woman who rang up your groceries with a tired smile. Then later that same night scrubbed the floors of the high-rise you work in while you slept. My feet were always swollen, my back always aching, and my mind constantly running numbers. Rent light, bill bus pass, school supplies. Trying to stretch one paycheck into 3 different lives. But in that tiny life, I had one bright, fierce little son. My daughter Kendra, 8 years old. Back then, skinny arms, big, curious eyes, braids that bounced when she ran. Smart in a way that scared me sometimes. You know that kind of smart, where you look at your kid and think, the world is not ready for how sharp you are. We shared a bedroom the size of some people's walk-in closets. Her bed was by the window because she liked to look at the sky before she fell asleep, and mine was pushed against the opposite wall. I used to lie awake at night watching her sleep, promising her in my head that someday I'd get her more than this. A yard her own room dinners that didn't start with the sentence, "We have to make this last till Friday." That night, the night everything changed, was a Tuesday. I remember because rent was due on Friday, and I was short-running numbers in my head all day while scanning barcodes and pretending everything was fine. The sky opened up that evening. Real rain, the kind that slaps the pavement and turns the streets into brown rivers. I was working late trying to squeeze in an extra hour. Kendra was home with a neighbor I trusted, or thought I did enough. Later, she told me what really happened. She said she went out into the hallway to get her jump rope from the front steps. Simple kid stuff. But when she pushed open the front door of our building and looked out into the rain, she froze. Across the street was a car that looked like it had accidentally been dropped from another planet. A sleek silver Mercedes sitting between beat-up sedans and rusted-out minivans. Everything about it screamed money wrong, block wrong life. And right next to it, half hidden by the rain, were 2 men in dark hoodies, crouched down by the passenger side. One of them had a small device in his hand. The other kept jerking his head up and down the street, nervous, jumpy. Even from where she was pressed up against the brick wall, Kendra could see they were messing with something underneath the car. Now my daughter didn't know what a bomb looked like, but she knew wrong. She knew bad. Kids in our neighborhood learn that early. She told me her first instinct was exactly what I taught her. Go back inside. Close the door, pretend you didn't see anything. When you live where we live, mind your own business is not just a saying. It's a survival strategy. I drilled that into her. If you see trouble, you get inside and you stay quiet. Baby, you hear me? But that night, something in her little chest wouldn't let her move. She kept thinking, somebody owns that car. Somebody is going to walk out here, unlock that door, turn that key. What if they get hurt? What if they die? Because I kept my mouth shut. And here's where I want to stop and ask you something straight up. If it were you, 8 years old, alone in the rain, watching strangers do something shady to a car that clearly belongs to someone. Important with a capital I. Would you have spoken up? Or would you have run back inside and pretended you never saw it? Kendra didn't run. Her hands were shaking, she told me, but she dug into the pocket of her pink jacket and pulled out this crumpled piece of school paper she'd been doodling on and a short little pencil. Her teacher had told the class to always keep something to write with in case inspiration strikes. That day, inspiration looked a whole lot like panic. On that soggy sheet in big, uneven letters, she wrote, "Bad men put something under your car. Don't drive it, call police. From a friend." The rain was smudging the words as she wrote them, but they were still readable. She checked the street 3 times. "Like you taught me, Mama," then sprinted across, shoved that paper under the windshield wiper, and ran back inside so fast her shoes didn't even feel wet until she slammed our apartment door and locked it. By the time I got home that night, she was dry in pajamas. Quiet in a way that made me frown. But I was so tired and so worried about money that when she said, "I'm fine, Mama," I believed her. Or I let myself believe her. I told myself I'd ask more later, like we always do as parents. Later. Meanwhile, across town, another life was about to collide with ours. His name was Julian Hartwell. To me at the time, that was just a name on shiny buildings downtown on bus ads about apps and tech stuff I never had time for. I knew Hartwell the way you know the name of the people whose groceries you bag. Far away, untouchable, not for you. That Tuesday night, Julian walked out of a community center 6 blocks from our place, tired and satisfied after a long meeting about funding after-school programs in underserved neighborhoods. It's funny, right? He had no idea one of those neighborhoods was about to save his life. He could have sent his driver, but he'd given him the night off. Wanted to be normal, so he took his silver Mercedes, the one he thought didn't draw as much attention as his other cars. That always makes me laugh a little. That car, glowing on our street like a trophy, and he thought he was being subtle. He was thinking about a hot shower, maybe a late dinner, just another long day done. And then he saw it. The paper, a small, pinkish, obviously kid-written note tucked under his windshield wiper. He told me later he almost ignored it. Figured it was some flyer or a neighbor complaining about rich folks parking on their street. But something about the handwriting and the way it was wedged there in the rain made him stop. Pluck it free and read. "Bad men put something under your car. Don't drive it. Call police. From a friend." He said he felt the blood drain out of his face. He didn't know if it was a prank or a trap or a cry for attention, but his gut grabbed him by the throat and said, "Step away." So he did. He backed up, pulled out his phone, and called the police. No sirens. That's what everyone remembered in our neighborhood the next day. 2 patrol cars, and then a bomb squad truck rolling in quiet lights blinking, but no sound like they were trying not to wake a sleeping giant. Yellow tape went up. Men in heavy protective gear crawled under that shiny car, and people started peeking from windows and stairwells up and down the block. They found it, a professional-grade explosive device tucked up in the undercarriage, wired to detonate when the engine turned over. No movie drama, no extra timer, no countdown. Turnkey, no more. Julian, no more. Mercedes, no more. Anything in about a 20-foot radius. "You're one lucky man, Mr. Hartwell," the detective told him. "If not for that note, we'd be zipping you into a bag right now." They asked if he had enemies. He did. Corporate rivals who didn't like that he wouldn't sell people who stood to gain a lot of money if he didn't wake up the next morning. The kind of thing most of us only ever see in headlines and courtroom shows. But Julian told me later none of that really stuck in his mind that night. What he kept seeing over and over was that little piece of paper with its messy letters and that last line. From a friend. Some child in a neighborhood he'd drive past without really seeing had saved his life and didn't even sign their name. And that bothered him a lot. The next morning, while I was tying my grocery store apron and making sure Kendra's lunch was packed, he called his assistant Patricia and cleared his calendar. "Reschedule everything," he told her. "Sir, we have quarterly reports, investors, the product launch review." "Reschedule it," he said. "A child saved my life. Finding them matters more than any meeting." He put on jeans and a sweater, took Patricia's modest sedan instead of his usual black car convoy, and drove back to Riverside Heights like a man on a mission. He started with the corner store. Mr. Kim squinted at the note, like maybe his eyes could pull a memory out of it, then shook his head. "Sorry, many kids come here. Hard to say." The laundromat, the barber shop, the little church, the tiny library, same story. Polite curiosity, a few suspicious side eyes. People in our neighborhood aren't used to rich men asking questions about local children for good reasons. You know what I mean. By noon, he and Patricia were sitting in a booth at Rhonda's diner. His face tired, his hopes starting to sag. He showed Rhonda the note and told her the story. She read it, her eyebrows shooting up. "Oh, this is definitely a baby," she said. "Big letters, some backwards, I'd say. Second or third grade. And if you're the guy with the bomb car, trust me, everyone around here has already told that story twice." She pointed them toward Washington. "Elementary told them to ask for Principal Ford. Said that woman knows every kid that walks through those doors, but good luck getting through those privacy rules." And she was right. Principal Ford listened carefully, studied the note, and then said what she had to say. "I can't give you information about specific students. It's the law." She did soften a little, though, and added, "What I can do is take your information. If any family comes forward, I'll pass it along." It wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was a crack in the door. He left his card, a simple white one, with his name number, and that logo that might as well have been a different planet to me back then, Hartwell Technologies. Then he did something a lot of powerful people wouldn't bother doing. He kept trying. He went back to our streets, bought coffee from Mr. Kim, asked again, checked apartment buildings, knocked on doors. An older woman named Mrs. Washington told him she'd seen a little girl in a bright pink jacket run across the street in the rain that night and then disappear into one of the buildings. That was something, but not enough to land on Kendra in 3B. By midday, people were getting nervous. A well-dressed white man knocking on doors, asking about little girls. Even with the best intentions, is still a man knocking on doors, asking about little girls. He could feel the suspicion, and he didn't blame them. Patricia, who has more common sense than most CEOs put together, finally said, "Maybe instead of looking for one child, you should bring the children to you." "What do you mean?" he asked. "A community event," she said. "Something for families. Food, games, no strings attached. Your face there, your name on the banner. If the child is from around here, they'll probably show up. And you'll actually be doing something for the neighborhood, not just taking from it." He thought about that. He's a businessman. He knows how to draw a crowd. By that evening, he'd rented out the community center for Saturday, paid for catering, hired face painters, bounce house, people, volunteers, you name it. Flyers went up on every corner. Community Appreciation Day. Free food, fun, and family activities. Sponsored by Hartwell Technologies. While he was planning that, my life looked like it always did. Just tired. I came home from my shift, my knees screaming, my head full of worry, and Kendra was waiting with her homework, smelling like the apple shampoo I bought only when it was on sale, because it made her smile. All her math answers were right like usual. This kid could run circles around adults if you gave her a chance. Then she asked me this out-of-nowhere question. Mama, if you saw somebody doing something bad, would you tell? Immediately my brain went on high alert. What do you mean? Did you see something at school? No, she said too fast. I mean, just in general. Would you tell even if you were scared? I gave her the official mom answer. I'd want you to tell a grown-up you trust me, or a teacher, or Miss Rhonda at the diner. And I asked again if she was worried about something. She shook her head, twisted the conversation toward dinner, and I told myself I'd come back to it. I didn't. Life got in the way. Or I let it. 2 days later, my phone rang at the store. It was the school. Miss Thompson. This is Principal Ford. Could you come in tomorrow around 3? Don't worry, it's nothing bad. Actually, something positive. If you're a parent, you know that nothing bad line never really relaxes you. I took a shorter lunch the next day, so I could get there on time, still wearing my Morrison's badge. Sitting in that office, I felt like a teenager again, waiting to get in trouble. But Principal Ford smiled at me, folded her hands and said, "A man came by earlier this week. He says a child's note saved his life. Someone put a bomb on his car, and a student left a warning. He's trying to find that child just to say thank you." And then she slid the card across the desk. Julian Hartwell, CEO Hartwell Technologies. I recognized the name immediately. I've rung up enough magazines and seen enough bus stop ads. This was not some local manager. This was big. She asked if I knew anything about it, and suddenly I could see Kendra in her soggy pajamas, that weird question about telling, the way she'd seemed so small and grown up at the same time that night. "I need to talk to my daughter," I said. They brought her in. She took one look at both of us and burst into tears. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, I promise." And it all came spilling out. The rain, the men in hoodies, the shiny car, the note, the running, the fear. I pulled her into my lap, even though she was getting big for that, and told her over and over, "You are not in trouble. You hear me. You saved someone's life. I am so proud of you." "Really?" she sniffled. "For real, for real." Principal Ford handed me the card again. "It's your choice whether to reach out," she said. In my experience, he seemed genuine, not trying to cause problems, just very, very grateful. That night, after Kendra fell asleep, I sat at the little wobbly kitchen table with our stack of bills in front of me, and that card on top. Every notice was red and loud. Rent, utilities, medical, all those numbers shouting at me. And that white card just sat there quiet, but maybe louder than all of them. What do you do when the most powerful person you've ever been this close to says, "I want to thank your kid"? Do you call or do you tell yourself? People like that don't really help people like us, and throw it away. I thought about my husband, Michael. He died 3 years before all this burned away piece by cancer, while I watched and tried not to fall apart in front of our daughter. Before he went, he made me promise 2 things. Take care of Kendra, and don't spend the rest of my life alone and scared. He used to say, "Don't block your blessings, Bree. Sometimes God sends them wrapped up in stuff that makes you uncomfortable." So I picked up the phone and dialed before I could lose my nerve. "This is Julian," he answered. "Mr. Hartwell, my name is Brianna Thompson," I said, my voice shaking. "I believe my daughter is the child you're looking for." He went completely silent for a second. Then I heard a chair scrape like he'd jumped up. "Is she all right?" he asked. "Please tell me your daughter is all right." It threw me how worried he sounded. Not rich man politeness worried, but real human worried. "She's fine," I said. "Just scared she might be in trouble." "Trouble," he said, and I could hear his voice crack a little. "She's a hero. She saved my life." We talked for a few minutes, and I told him we'd seen the flyers, and were planning to go to his community event on Saturday. "That's perfect," he said. "I'll be there. I'd be honored to thank her in person. And that right there was the moment our lives swerved off the track I thought we were stuck on forever. Saturday came, and Kendra woke up already dressed. Purple dress, favorite bows, too much excitement for her small body. She kept talking about the bounce house, the face painting, and free lunch. You don't realize how powerful those words are until you've had days where lunch is whatever you can cobble together from the back of the pantry. We walked the 6 blocks to the community center, joining this slow river of neighbors, kids tugging on parents' sleeves. Older folks curious about the noise, people who probably hadn't had a day off in weeks, ready for some free joy. The place looked different than I'd ever seen it. Balloons tied to railings, music playing, tables lined up with food. Burgers, hot dogs, salads, trays of things I usually only saw behind glass at nicer stores. A bounce house inflated in one corner, volunteers painting butterflies and superheroes on kids' faces. Lines at every station. But the good kind of lines, the ones full of laughter and loud jokes. "Miss Thompson." I turned and saw a woman walking toward us. Black, late 50s maybe, sharp but warm eyes, neat outfit. "I'm Patricia," she said. "I work with Mr. Hartwell. He asked me to watch for you. He's very eager to meet Kendra." My stomach flipped. "Okay," I said, reaching for Kendra's hand. "Come on, baby." Julian was across the room talking to a group of older residents. I recognized him immediately from pictures, but in real life he looked softer. Not in a bad way, just less polished. Dark hair, with some gray, simple blue shirt, khaki pants. Not a suit in sight. When Patricia pointed us out, he stopped mid-sentence. You could see it on his face, like everything else in that room faded out. He walked over fast. "Miss Thompson," he said, and then his eyes dropped to Kendra. And this must be Kendra. She got suddenly shy, half hiding behind my leg again. "Say hi, baby," I murmured. "Hi," she whispered. He crouched down to her level, not reaching out, just looking her in the eye, like she was the most important person he'd seen all week. "Kendra," he said, voice softer than I expected. "My name is Julian, and I am so, so grateful to you. You saved my life." "I was really scared," she told him, barely audible. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," he said. "It means you did the right thing anyway. And you did. If you hadn't left that note, I wouldn't be here standing in front of you right now." She looked at me like she needed confirmation, and I nodded, swallowing down my own tears. He talked with her a little more, complimented her handwriting, asked what her favorite subject in school was. Then he asked if he could talk to me alone. Patricia swooped in like the smooth pro she is, took Kendra to the face painting station, and promised to keep her in sight. Julian led me to a small office off the main hall. From the window, we could see my daughter getting her face painted into a full butterfly, already gesturing as she talked to Patricia. Seeing her safe gave me the courage to sit down and really listen to what he had to say. "First, I want you to know," he said, "that I don't take lightly what your daughter did. The police told me that device under my car was professional. Engine on, I'm gone. That note is the only reason I'm alive." I nodded, not trusting my voice. He took a breath like he was about to jump into cold water. "I'm not here to throw a couple of gift cards at you and disappear," he said. "Your daughter saved my life. I can't pay that back, but I can pay it forward into your lives, if you'll let me." And here comes the twist, the part I never saw coming, and the part that flipped this from crazy story into everything changes. He said, "I did some basic research after you called Brianna. I hope that doesn't offend you. I needed to understand who I was talking to. You work at Morrison's Grocery during the day and clean offices at night. You've been behind on rent a few times. You're raising Kendra on your own since your husband passed. You're doing everything right, and still barely keeping your head above water." My spine stiffened. Part of me wanted to say, "You don't get to look into my life like that." The other part knew he wasn't wrong. "A lot of people are struggling," I said. "We're not special." "But you are," he said simply. "And she is. And here's what I'd like to do. Again, not as charity, as gratitude." He held up a finger. "First, I want to clear your debts. Rent late fees, credits, cards, medical bills. Let me wipe that slate clean, so you're not constantly fighting yesterday just to survive today." My instinct went straight to no to pride. To all the stories about wealthy people buying access to your soul. He must have seen it on my face because he didn't pause. "Second," he said, "I want to offer you a job. A real job at my company. Benefits, decent salary, regular hours, so you can actually have evenings with your daughter instead of mopping floors until midnight. You have an associate's degree in business administration. Our community outreach department needs people who actually know what it feels like to live where our programs are supposed to help. You've lived it." I blinked. I hadn't heard anyone say "we need you" about my experience. Not like that. "And third," he said, "I'd like to set up a college fund for Kendra. You said she likes reading. She's obviously bright. Money should not be the thing that stops her from going as far as she wants to go." I sat there in that old office chair, the party noise faint through the walls, and my brain just kind of shorted. This was too much. Too fa. It felt like standing at a crossroads with two paths. One labeled familiar struggle, and one labeled terrifying blessing, and knowing you can't stay where you are. So let me throw it back to you. If you were in my shoes, would you say yes? Or would you walk away? Because you're scared it's all strings and fine print. I thought about Kendra's worn-out shoes, our constant pasta dinners, the way my chest stayed tight all month, wondering if this would be the week something finally snapped. I thought about Michael, about his face when he made me promise to let myself be happy again. And I heard my own voice, surprisingly calm, say, "Okay, yes, we accept, with gratitude." The relief that washed over his face. I will never forget that. "Thank you," he said. "You have no idea how much this means to me, too." That's when our life split into before and after. From there, things started moving fast. On Monday, I walked into Hartwell Technologies not with a mop and a cart, but with a badge and a job title. I still remember the smell of the lobby, polished wood, expensive coffee, air conditioning that didn't have to be begged. Patricia met me, walked me through the offices, introduced me to people who shook my hand like I wasn't invisible. My desk had a computer, a phone, and a window. I know that sounds small, but to me it felt like stepping into somebody else's skin. I kept waiting for security to tap my shoulder and say, "Sorry, wrong Brianna." Rachel, my new boss in community outreach, sat me down and asked me about Riverside Heights, about what programs had actually helped our neighbors, and what had just made nice photos for newsletters. She handed me files and said, "We don't want to be the people who show up for one day of good press and disappear. We want to do real good. You can help us do that." At home, we were still in the same little apartment, but everything felt different. I had evenings with my daughter again. I still cooked cheap meals, but now there was a plan behind them instead of pure panic. And then there was Julian. He didn't just vanish back into his CEO schedule after he fulfilled his debt. If anything, he showed up more. He'd randomly be on the third floor near the break room when I went for coffee. "Oh, hey, Brianna, how's the new job treating you?" He'd ask about Kendra. Remember details like her favorite book series, or the fact that she hated peas but loved broccoli. It was weird, in a good way, to be seen like that. He came to our apartment for dinner one night after work. I almost didn't invite him, nervous about our chipped plates and wobbly table, but Kendra begged. "Mama, we should say thank you with your stew," she said. "You make the best stew." So he came, sat on the same sagging couch where I'd cried over unpaid bills, and ate 2 bowls of stew, like it was the best thing he'd tasted all year. "This is amazing," he said. "You could open a restaurant." "Yeah," I said, laughing, "right next to my yacht. You never know." He smiled. And the thing is, it didn't feel like he was making fun of me. It felt like he really believed anything was possible. Kendra loved him almost from the start, but she kept her distance in that kid way at first, testing, watching. Then he helped her with a science project about the solar system sitting at our tiny table. Both of them arguing about Pluto, and I watched something shift. She started talking to him like he'd always been there. We were all getting used to each other slowly, cautiously. But feelings have their own speed. I started noticing little things. The way my stomach did a small flip when I saw his name pop up on my phone. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, like he was memorizing my face. The way my shoulders relaxed when he walked into a room. And of course, because I'm human, and I've been hurt, I told myself all the reasons that was stupid. He's your boss. He's rich, you're not. He's older. You're a widowed single mom in cheap jeans, girl, calm down. But my heart didn't care about logic. The funny thing is, the person who saw it clearest was the smallest one in the room. One Saturday, Julian took Kendra to the park so I could run errands in peace. They walked, fed ducks, talked about school. He told me later she'd been quiet for a bit. Then out of nowhere, she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Always," he told her. "Do you love my mama?" He could have dodged. He didn't. "I do," he said. "Very much." "Then why don't you tell her?" she asked. "My daddy used to say life is too short to not tell people you love them. He told us every day, even when he was really sick. Adults complicate everything. Kids cut right through it." That conversation with Kendra gave him the push he needed. That night he texted me, "Are you free tomorrow evening? I'd like to take you to dinner. Just the two of us." Patricia said she'd happily hang out with Kendra. Just the two of us. I stared at that message, my heart thumping so loud it felt like it vibrated my phone. I knew exactly what that sounded like. I also knew saying no would haunt me. So I texted back, "Yes, I'd like that." The next night when he knocked on our door, I opened it wearing a red dress I'd bought once for a work party and never thought I'd wear again. He stood there in a navy suit without a tie, looking at me like I'd knocked the words out of his mouth. "You look incredible," he said. "Thank you," I managed. "You clean up okay too?" I joked, trying to break the tension. At the restaurant, dim lights, white tablecloths, the kind of place where the forks are fancy and the waiters speak softly. I was sure I was going to say something stupid, or drop my water, or mispronounce the menu. He kept the conversation easy, asked about my favorite childhood memory, told me about how he used to do his homework by the light of a fridge, because the kitchen was the coolest place in their tiny house in the summer. When the food came and went, and the plates were cleared, he took a slow breath and reached across the table for my hand. "Brianna," he said, "these past few months have been different for me. Better. Before you and Kendra, I thought I was doing fine. Work meetings, mergers repeat. Now I go through a whole week just to get to stew at your table and Kendra's stories at the end of the day." He squeezed my fingers. "I'm 52 years old," he went on, "and I have more money than I need and less family than I ever wanted. Being in your home, hearing two voices call my name, helping with homework, being asked about my day by someone who actually cares. I didn't realize how empty my life was until you started filling it." He looked straight at me. "I'm in love with you, Brianna. Completely. And I love Kendra too. I don't want to just be the guy who paid some bills and gave you a job. I want to be part of your life. The late nights, the early mornings, the hard days, the boring ones. All of it. If you'll let me." Tears stung my eyes before I could stop them. I thought I was crazy. I admitted, laughing and crying at the same time. I told myself, he's your boss, he's rich, he's from a whole different world. There's no way. I've been fighting it because it scared me. I loved my husband, and I buried him. I didn't think my heart had another big love in it. I took a breath. But it does, I said. I love you too, Julian. And I'm tired of being scared of good things. Life already took so much from me, I'm not going to help it by pushing away what's right in front of me. He moved to sit next to me, asked, "Can I kiss you?" And when I said yes, that first kiss felt like turning a page I didn't know was stuck in my book. From that night on, we weren't just tied together by a note and a job. We were dating. We were building something that looked a lot like a family. It wasn't always smooth. We had our first real fight over a birthday present for Kendra, him wanting to buy the most expensive tablet on the market, insisting she didn't need anything that cost more than our old monthly rent used to. We raised voices. We walked away. We came back. We actually listened. He apologized for trying to fix his childhood by overspending on hers. I apologized for snapping from my own money trauma. We compromised on a mid-range tablet and agreed he'd teach her to code himself. We went to school together for parent-teacher conferences. Mrs. Patterson told us Kendra's reading had jumped, her confidence grown, her smile come back in a way she hadn't seen since before Michael died. Julian walked out of that classroom grinning like a little kid, saying, "That was my first parent-teacher conference." It hit me then. This was new for him, too. We had dinners at my place, and occasionally at his huge house that echoed less and less as we filled it with our noise. We took Kendra to a museum, to the zoo, to the park. He ran alongside her as she learned to ride her bike, nearly tripping over his own feet so she wouldn't fall. She called him Daddy Julian one day and didn't correct herself. 6 months after that first dinner, we stood in a glass conservatory at the botanical gardens, surrounded by orchids, and he dropped to one knee. My heart knew before my brain did. He talked about the bomb, about the note, about how he thought the story ended the night the police defused that device, when really it began there. He talked about our tiny apartment feeling more like home than any place he'd ever lived. Then he opened a small box with a ring inside, beautiful but not showy, and said, "Brianna Thompson, I love you. I love your daughter. Will you marry me and let me be your husband and be the father Kendra deserves?" I thought about Michael, about our little wedding in a church basement, about his hand in mine, as he made me promise to keep living after he was gone. I swear I felt his blessing like a warm hand on my shoulder. "Yes," I said. "Yes, absolutely yes." We told Kendra that afternoon. She screamed so loud Patricia probably lost some hearing. "Does this mean you're my daddy for real now?" she asked him. "If it's okay with you and your mama," he said. "I'd like to adopt you and give you my name. You can keep Thompson too, so your first dad is always with you." "Kendra Thompson Hartwell," she said slowly. "I like that." We had a small summer wedding. Nothing crazy, even though he could have thrown some giant gala. About 30 people, a historic house with a pretty garden, string light, simple food. Rhonda catered because I insisted money go back into the community that raised me. I walked down that little outdoor aisle alone, not because I was lonely, but because I was choosing this. I wasn't being handed over. I was stepping into a new chapter with my own 2 feet. We said our vows, cried, laughed, kissed. Patricia cried through the entire ceremony. My best friend Nicole toasted us and told Julian, "You mess this up, and I will haunt you." Kendra got up on a chair at the reception, grabbed the mic with both hands and said, "I just want to say thank you to Mr. Julian for being my new daddy, and thank you to my first daddy in heaven for sending him to us. I think all this happened because I was brave that one time. So if you're scared, you should still do the right thing, because you never know what good stuff might happen." Yeah, she said that. And yes, everyone sobbed. Fast forward 5 years. We live in a house where the heat actually works. The water pressure is good, and there's enough room for Kendra to slam her door when she's in her feelings without waking the whole building. She's 14 now, still obsessed with purple taller than I'm ready for, and already talking about college like it's not some impossible dream. Julian stepped back from running the company day to day, handed more responsibilities to his team, and we focus a lot of our time on the Hartwell Foundation now, the thing I help run. We've opened 3 community centers in neighborhoods that look a whole lot like the one we came from. Free tutoring, hot meals, job training, mental health support, safe spaces for kids to just be kids, and not little adults carrying all their parents' stress. Sometimes reporters come and want the story. They always ask about the note, the bomb, the billionaire, the poor single mom. They love that neat arc. Danger rescue, love wedding. What they don't always want to sit with is the part that bothers me the most and keeps me up sometimes. One night, Kendra came home from school and said, "We're learning about acts of courage in English class. I told them about my note." "What did your teacher say?" I asked. "She said sometimes the smallest acts have the biggest consequences," Kendra said. "She said I changed the whole course of 3 lives in like 5 minutes. Julian looked at her and said, "She's right. You saved my life. You gave your mom a chance to breathe again. And you gave all of us a family we never imagined we'd have." "I'm glad I did it," she said. "I was scared, but I'm glad." And here's where I want to leave you, because this is the part most people argue about in the comments. We live in a world where an 8-year-old in a poor neighborhood has to decide between staying safe and saving a stranger. We live in a world where a bomb on a billionaire's car makes more sense to people than a billionaire showing up to a community center with free food and no cameras. Do you think it's fair that my child's one brave act opened doors for us that some families never get, no matter how good they are, how hard they work, how many quiet, brave things they do every day that nobody ever sees? Do you think it's fair that it took his money and his power to turn that moment into a whole new life? When the same note in front of some beat-up car, with nobody important inside, might have gone ignored. I don't have neat answers for that. I'm grateful. Deeply. I'm also aware that our story is the exception, not the rule. So tell me this, if you were Kendra in that, Rain, would you have left the note? Or would you have hidden and tried to forget? If you were Julian, would you have come back to that neighborhood, knocked on doors, thrown events? Or would you have just thanked God and moved on with your life? If you were me, would you have taken the help? Or would you have let pride keep you stuck exactly where you were? And bigger than that, if you're someone with more than enough, do you believe you have a responsibility to use it to pull other people up? Or is that just a nice extra nobody should expect? I really want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Agree with me. Argue with me. Share your own story about a moment when you had to choose between fear and doing the right thing. Have you ever spoken up when it could cost you something, or stayed quiet and wondered what if for years after? If you've ever been on either side of that choice, I want to hear from you. And if this story made you feel something, if it made you angry, hopeful, sad, inspired, all of the above, hit like so. More people see it. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that small acts matter, and subscribe if you want more real stories like this. Because at the end of the day, sometimes, it's not the big speeches or the big checks that change everything. Sometimes, it's just a little girl, a pencil, a piece of crumpled paper, and the decision to be brave for 5 minutes.